everybody. I'm Natalia. I am one of the co-founders of Wild Woman Wellness, and I'm here today with one of my best friends on this planet. This is Dr. Ashley Haywood. Ashley and I have known each other since the last century. We went to college together at Oberlin, and she's brilliant. She is just one of the funniest, most brilliant people I know. She has been my doctor on call, who's not really my doctor, but I call on her often for advice on many things, including my menstrual cycle, my fertility, my health during this COVID period. And I just wanted to read a little bit from your bio because I thought it was really
sure.
so awesome. So it says, what year did you start Bloom Healthcare?
2008, I want to say.
Wow.
Well, first we were harmonizing healthcare and then we became Bloom. So we started practicing medicine in 2008. We became Bloom Natural Healthcare, I want to say 2010, because the twins were 8 months old.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, right. I wanted to say, right. Ashley is a mother of 3.
Right.
A wife, a doctor, and runs her own healthcare practice with her wife, Dr. Molly O'Neill. It's called Bloom Healthcare in Portland, Oregon. And here on the website, it says, her practice has a special focus on women's health, polycystic ovary syndrome, infertility, menopause, and endometriosis, as well as blood sugar regulation, hormone balancing, weight loss, physical medicine, and nutrition. She believes balance is key. How we treat ourselves, how we think and feel, and how we choose to live our lives matters. As human beings, there are many aspects to our lives that inform our sense of well-being, health, and happiness. Each of these aspects needs tending to in order to thrive and to be strong, achieving optimal wellness. Working together with Dr. Haywood, you will find out what it means for you to be well and to feel well. That's so great. And
I should read my own paragraph more often. I should put that on my mirror.
People like me, and I'm
this is how you should, including me, should live.
Agree. Things that Ashley has done for me recently is given me a prescription for how to stay healthy during COVID, which is like put a fucking mask on. But after that, it's just how it is. But she sent me a list of vitamins I should be taking. And is it because this is what you're taking yourself or what you would prescribe to patients, or just because of my own, what you know about my lifestyle? What led you to give me that?
What I sent you is a pretty generic COVID care package. I personally have a hard time taking more than 3 supplements at a time, which is a problem in this pandemic time, but I feel like it's important. There's just a couple things that we could be taking to just in addition and to make ourselves like just do what we can to do due diligence to get through the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a lot of research studies because it's new, but we can go on a few things that we know. So one of them would be vitamin D.
So I'm just going to hold actually.
Yeah, do it.
What you told specifically and the brand and everything, but we don't.
Yeah. And you can get vitamin D, if you just go to a reputable grocery store, you usually can get a good brand, and we have the internet now because you don't like to leave the house, so that's no problem. And I'm telling people to take 5,000 IUs in the winter. Usually people take 2,000 all the time. Pacific Northwest, anything in the northern hemisphere for the most part is not getting enough vitamin D in general. And vitamin D is sort of amorphous. Like vitamin C, you get scurvy if you don't have enough of it. Vitamin D, there's all these things linked to not having enough of it, and we don't really know exact mechanisms for a lot of things. It's more like incidental findings. Like with the COVID, we are finding out that many people diagnosed with COVID concurrently are deficient in vitamin D. And those seem to go together. We don't know why. We don't know if it's other comorbidities of the population that they're testing that would be vitamin D deficient in general anyway, depending on where they live, economic status, race, and poverty level, things like that will also, and age will also affect vitamin D status and your ability to absorb either through your skin or if you're orally supplementing. So there's lots of things involved as to why people are vitamin deficient. We have seen a correlation with vitamin D deficiency and the coronavirus, however, and being positive with the coronavirus. So why not take it? I tell people it's pretty cheap. It's safe. I'm upping it to 5,000 IUs in my patients for the winter. Even Dr. Fauci takes it. In fact, it was also part of Trump's little regimen when they were trying to save his life, like when they were throwing the book at him, vitamin D was in there. So we don't have enough time with this virus to know if it's actually helpful, but we do have enough time with the vitamin to know that we all need it. So I just tell everyone to take it right now and to up to 5,000 IUs
Okay.
because we'd like the vitamin D levels above 30 when you get your blood drawn. And that is still trying to be figured out. Vitamin D is a tricky vitamin. So I just tell people to take it. And the other one I tell people to take is vitamin C.
Yep. So I just huge
because cheap, easy, researched forever, old, we have lots of studies on it. It seems to be the one thing that we can actually sort of prove shortens the length of a common cold. COVID-19, that's the common cold virus. It's just another variation of the common cold virus. So why not take vitamin C? Because it's going to help. Plus it boosts immune system functioning, which we all need in the winter anyway. Because I think one of the scary things about this winter is anytime someone has a cold, they get to be afraid they have the coronavirus. And so if we can just stay healthier in general throughout the winter, I definitely like to get a hacking cough once every couple years. I don't tend to run in the sinus infection department, but I would really like to not get that now. So I just like to keep us strong. And the third one I send people for the coronavirus is vitamin C, elderberry. Again, general immune booster. We have some studies on it. We don't have a ton. It's a natural berry that people eat in their food. So why wouldn't we just take it? It's rich in antioxidants. It's really healthy and good for us. You only need like a quarter teaspoon. Kids will take it. People who are sensitive to taking disgusting things will take it. All of those things. So it's just a good vitamin D, vitamin C, and elderberry are like the trifecta. Okay. I also sent you the 200 milligrams of Zen.
You did.
Because I feel like we're all just a little anxious and a little in it right now. And even with my patients, it feels sometimes flippant to be like, hi, how are you? It's like, it's always this like, hey, how are you? Like the real, like there's not really a lot of la 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 blah, up here. We're all in it. So there's a lot more anxiety, and anxiety, one of the neurotransmitters involved in anxiety is GABA. GABA is our only inhibitory neurotransmitter. So it's the neurotransmitter that's like, you've so got this, Tolly, like you have got this. And we use it up. And none of the antidepressants that we take pharmaceutically work on the GABA system either. They just aren't designed to do it, except Xanax. Benzodiazepines is the drug class that works on the GABA system, and yum, that's why people like it, because you get flooded with benzos and you're like, I've got this big time. The problem is we can't take Xanax every day. It's not an everyday drug. It's literally designed to flood your body and flood your brain with benzos, with GABA, so that you feel better. And so that you can get out of your panic attack. So you can stop your, heart from feeling like you're having a heart attack. Like panic attacks are really, really real and scary and can feel like you're dying. So that's what Xanax is for. GABA, we can just take every day because we're using it up. It's sort of like naturopathic a benzo because, and then L-theanine is in there too. And L-theanine makes GABA. So it's giving you the building block to make the GABA and then just giving you GABA in general. And I've had one patient tell me they felt a little lightheaded when they took it, but I haven't had anyone tell me anything negative. So I have people other than like, it just didn't help. So, and when it does help, it helps so much that people love it. It doesn't have to be that 200 milligrams of Zen. I particularly like that name because who doesn't? But you can find GABA. Natural Factors makes one. It's everywhere. It's like CBDs. It's all the rage. So you can find it everywhere. CBDs are another really good one, different for different people. If you get it derived from hemp, it won't have any THC in it. And so for some people that works. Often they get a tolerance to it and start having to take more and more. And a lot of times CBDs becomes a money factor because of the amount they have to take to pay for it. Often if people just add the tiniest bit of THC, like if you get things that are like 10-1, where you have just 1 milligram THC for every 10 milligram CBDs, especially people who do not like the feeling of THC in their body, something about that one little amount can help our cannabinoid receptors work better. So we need to just get research in that because that's also so good for stress, anxiety, for some people, and for pain. And so I really like to help people with anxiety and stress, GABA, and then immune boosting. And that's sort of like a basic sort of just immune stress panel without knowing specifically about anyone specific things. Like that's like wild woman forest medicine without knowing anything particular. right? Like it's safe because it's like a blanket of wellness that we can all know about, you know?
Two things
If
that
you tend to get,
about the vitamin D, because I've been told for many years by my gynecologist that I have vitamin D deficiency. I think many women do, and
Yep.
for bone health too. Like a
We
lot of
need it for bone health.
get osteoporosis.
Yep. We need it for bone health. We need it. We need it. There's something to do with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, and vitamin D deficiency. There's a definite link there. We're just not really sure. It's more things we observe clinically.
Mhm.
And so we're still working out vitamin D. I don't know that there's big money in it, so we don't have as much research as we would have, let's say, in other things. And so I just tell my people to take it. And why not, you know,
Yeah.
and take a lot of it, 5,000.
Vitamin B complex.
So B complex, Bs are just food for the brain. They're just like, it's what your brain needs. Your brain needs glucose. It can't use fat. It has to use glucose to go into the brain. And then your brain needs B vitamins. So I tell everyone, get a B complex for the winter if you want to take more things. If you eat a rainbow of foods, you might have enough B in your body. You know, if you're predominantly eating vegetables, and then from there, whatever is your particular form of eating that makes you feel good. Like for some people it's meat, for some people it's whole grains and no meat. Vegetables is the common factor for everybody. And then we figure it out from there as to what makes someone feel good and what's the best for their genetic makeup and their lifestyle, you know? And so if you're eating a rainbow of veggies and veggies is your main food group, most people are getting a lot of the vitamins and minerals they need, A and Bs, except for B12, which comes in meat. You don't need a lot of meat. So my vegans who don't eat meat or dairy at all, I just test their B12 and then supplement, and I have them take 1 to 5 milligrams a day. And then we just we test it, because if B12 gets below 400, people can start having just full body malaise and joint pain and cold hands and feet. And so I check it to make sure they're absorbing it. You can supplement that.
Something weird just happened with your sound.
Hmm?
I think you just covered up your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of reasons that B can either not be absorbed if you do eat meat or you don't eat meat. And so we need to make sure your B stays high enough, because low B12 around 400 can be cold hands and feet and overall malaise. And so if someone becomes vegetarian or vegan, they'll usually feel good for about 3 months. And then at the 3-month marker is when we really got to make sure they're supplementing enough B12 to keep going, which is just a blood test. You can definitely do it. It's not rocket science.
Not going to a homeopathic or a holistic doctor, I'm just going to like an allopathic regular occasionally, or even a walk-in clinic. Is this something you ask for? Like would you
Most general wellness checks won't think about B12 unless you tell them that you don't eat meat. But if you tell them you don't eat a lot of meat or you don't eat meat, then they will check your B12. And I personally have found a lot of patients who eat meat who are low in B12 anyway. So B12 is really hard to absorb. And so if people have gut issues or absorption issues or gut inflammation from other reasons, then they might not be absorbing enough B12. B12 is hard because it has to bind to intrinsic factor, which is made in the stomach by parietal cells. So it has to bind to something, then go into our small intestine and get absorbed there. And so that's a multi-step process. So if someone has stomach issues or acid issues and their stomach isn't making enough intrinsic factor, or if they have ulcers or something going on in their small intestine. So even people that eat meat, there's a multiple step process. And people who don't sometimes don't absorb it, supplementing. And so they need injections, and then they get intramuscular injections. So B12 is it's just a good one. It became really popular when chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia started hitting the mainstream, because it can give you a boost of energy, which brings us full circle to B complex. So in med school, during lab class, I used to be a lab teacher. And if people, once they got through blood draws on each other, because not all doctors really draw blood, they don't all like it. I love it, most don't. So when people would suffer through that, our reward would we would get to do B complex shots and B12 shots.
I love that. That's medical school reward. I let you draw my blood. That's how much I love you.
Yeah, I love it, but lots of doctors don't. But you have to learn it as part of your skill set, you know. But B12 and B complex is like the boost of energy reward. Yeah. So good B complex with B12 that's been methylated. It's just a bit mainstream good health, and not everyone likes a big supplement. So I just cover it all, and then people can figure out what they like.
Vitamin A.
What is that one? Vitamin A is an immune booster. So if you're getting pregnant, don't take it, because it can be teratogenic for fetuses. But if you're not getting pregnant, then I put people on 5 to 10,000 IUs periodically, you know, like a few times a week.
Oh, okay.
Throughout the winter. You can take it every day or not. It's just a good immune booster. People get a little afraid of it because of toxicity, but that is usually for fetuses. It's also what really good for the skin. That is what all that Accutane is made out of, is vitamin A derivatives.
Oh.
And so vitamin A is really good for skin. If people are, if you're having stress zits, or if you're having face zits from all the mask wearing, that's a thing.
Oh.
Vitamin A can help.
Okay, so well, wait, there's just one more. This is just one I don't know if you told me to or I've just been doing it, but I take a reishi.
Mushrooms are the best.
This
They're
is-
so good. They're just so nourishing, and they're a superfood, and they're so good for our immune system, and different mushrooms do different things. They're good for energy. They're good. They're a good adrenal tonic. They're really magical. And so I really just tell people to take what they resonate with, because just because something's magical doesn't mean you necessarily resonate with it internally. Like maybe you like to hunt for mushrooms, but you don't resonate with swallowing mushrooms. Who knows? Right. So what's really important is that you resonate with whatever you're taking. And mushrooms are the best if you resonate with them. They're really good. Plus, I feel like, back to my 3-thing rule, we get excited about different things at different times. So some people will be like, I've taken reishi for 20 years. It's amazing. And other people will be like, I've taken reishi for a year. It's been incredible. I'm going to try this now. Or, oh, remember how good I felt on that? I'm going to go back. And like, I think our body likes to see new things a lot, so we don't get too used to stuff. It makes our body kind of wake up a little bit. And so I'll tell people, just like, take a break, just take a rest for a few months. And a good time to do that's in the summer, because people don't get as sick in the summer.
Right. Okay.
You know?
Going back early, you said something about the coronavirus being basically like a virus, like the common cold.
Yeah.
But I thought, I mean, I remember early days, like March, April, you were explaining to me how it behaves like an H1N1
Right.
disease.
Right.
Such a
Yes.
complicated.
And so we're still learning about it. So, I mean, the vaccine is also, I mean, it's really an antiviral. It's, and so.
Okay, well, this brings me to what I really wanted to ask you about was your opinion about the vaccine and how I'm sure, especially on the West Coast, I feel like there's a prevalence of, well, I shouldn't say that, but I feel like in a lot of different communities, there's a lot of anti-vax, there's a lot of
Sure.
information, and
Yep.
this is just your opinion. This isn't a blanket statement, but
Yeah.
what are you telling your patients, or what are you telling your family and yourself about it?
Well, Molly and I will be on the earlier end to get it, because we're both healthcare practitioners.
Nice.
And so we'll be on the earlier end. We're not in the hospital, but we do spend an hour with our patients close up, and so that's risky. We have an N95 on, and a face shield and glasses and a thing around our head. But it puts us at risk when we see our patients. And so we'll be in line for it. I'm all for it. I'm like, shoot me up. But I have never responded negatively to a vaccine. I have no negative vaccine experience. I've gotten the flu vaccine a couple times, never gotten the flu. So some years I can be kind of flippant about it and just sort of forget, and just like not get around to doing it, like a person who takes being healthy for granted. I have tons of chronic pain and other hormone stuff. So it's not like I'm like not suffering in other ways, but like, I don't love to rock the flu every year. So I get flippant about taking it some years. I definitely got it this year. Why not? I don't respond negatively to it. So why wouldn't I? I have an issue with being told we have to do anything. So I do have a public health part of me. I've got different parts of me. I've got the part of me that's like, I don't want anyone to be forced to do anything. But then I've got the part of me that taught public health and knows that like the individual life doesn't actually matter in public health when you're talking about the good of a society. And that gets really hard in America because we don't care about the common good. We're all about an individualistic society. In fact, you're weak if you don't look out for yourself first. And so in that kind of a society, it's why we have such mask wearing issues. And so we don't like being told what to do. And I understand. I personally have no vaccine issues. My kids have had no vaccine issues. We are going to get the vaccine. We did a delayed vaccine schedule. My kids won't get it until the kids can get it, but we will.
Actually got the flu from the flu vaccine. The one time I ever got it was at Oberlin. They told us we had to. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh.
Our freshman year, we had to.
I did not remember that.
Oh yeah, you had to sign
because it was a non-issue for me, right? Because I don't respond to them.
Right.
I
got the only time I've ever gotten the flu was actually and I've also been of the mind of, often like in New York last year, they just got it wrong. They got the
right. It's not a guarantee. They make it the year before, and it's not always a guarantee. And so I am not I'm case by case on the flu vaccine for people. And a lot of it for me is how it makes someone's own anxiety feel about the winter, or if they're susceptible to getting the flu.
Okay,
If
but
you had a really,
this is
what?
but that's flu. I understand that. This global pandemic.
But even like someone like you, I would be like, don't get the flu vaccine and take vitamin C, take vitamin D, take elderberry, get sleep. Like you have enough privilege to be able to do self-care through the winter in ways that will keep you healthy, right? You can sleep, you can eat vegetables, you can do like tasks of daily living in a healthy way for your body. So you could not get the flu vaccine. You know what I mean? You also live in the country, and so you're not in Manhattan anymore. Like it's, that's where I'm really case by case basis for people, because I understand public health. I would die for the revolution. The reason I don't really, I mean, I would die for science. I just have kids and they need a mom, so I can't do that, but I would. I'm full Hamilton in that way. And so I will get it. And I also think it's really cool. And I totally understand being nervous. I do. And most people that are nervous aren't actually in line to get it that early anyway. So a lot of those people will just be able to watch the rest of us and see what happens, which is fine. If my kids had really, really bad reactions to vaccines, I would be worried. And that's fair, like government's hard to trust. And I understand that.
Well,
So
point.
I also have taught public health at the medical school, and I saw what happened in the 1918 flu pandemic. I saw what happened before we had the smallpox vaccine. I saw the hospitals filled with like polio lung and like all the things, you know what I mean? And so like on those long lung breathing machines. And so I have images in my brain of what happened before vaccines and pasteurization, so I have reverence for that. So I'm happy to get in line, but it's also my profession. So it feels sort of like what I do. Like I show the non-doctors that it's safe. That sort of feels important to me.
So I just want to ask you one more question, which is kind of a doozy, but knowing, it was difficult for you to make the decision to be active in the protests that were going on in Portland for Black Lives Matter because of your role in the health
Yep.
and
Yep.
because you're a mom. Those two were interchangeable. And you went ahead and decided to not only participate, but be really on the front lines nightly for several weeks. And my question now is, um, actually, I never really heard about what was the switch for you? What was the flip that made you just, I have to go out and do this? And how has that experience shifted your your own life as a person who's a healthcare worker and as a mom, as a queer person in the world?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, The protests were amazing, and I was not a member of the Wall of Moms because the Wall of Moms were very specific, and that they were there till the end, and they were there to get tear gas, and they were there to face the feds, and they weren't going to leave. And I was not guaranteeing that I wasn't going to leave. And part of the deal I made with my family when I went to the protest is that I would come home before the tear gassing if I could predict it. It wasn't a guarantee I was going to be able to predict it, so I was prepared with the respirator and all the things you need. But I would try to leave before the tear gassing started. And so I really had to dig deep about that, because I do want to die for the revolution, but I have to come home to my kids right now. And I have a lot of white privilege, and I want to use it in ways that push everyone and humanity forward for the good of mankind and womankind and non-binary kind. And so I want to be present for that. And so as the protests started happening and they started being shown on TV, and of course I'm in Portland, so we were like a really important pivotal piece for that when the feds came in. And Portland is one of the whitest cities in America for our size. And so it felt like a really important thing for me to be part of in that way too. Because Black people in Portland are often too afraid to go to the protests, because being Black in Portland is a really big deal and scary. And so it's actually, well, white people need to go downtown and show up and help, and not do performative allyship, but go downtown. And then it's not up to me to say whether someone feels like I'm their ally or not. I just have to show up and listen. And that's what a lot of the protests were. And so what changed for me was I noticed, because my town in particular was on the news all the time, people were wearing masks and people were being respectful, and people were, as someone who also is a little bit agoraphobic and claustrophobic, I wish everyone would stand that far apart in protests and concerts. Like you didn't have 6 feet, but you always had between 1 and 3 feet. And I was up at the front a lot of the time, just because of the way I ended up behind the Wall of Moms. And I just felt very people were not there to hurt other people. So everyone was wearing a mask, everyone. There were a couple who, like, there was one trumpet player who was just like clearly like rocking on a testosterone high, and he was like the trumpeter of Sherwood Forest, and it was amazing. But you want to be nowhere near that person because he's spewing. Brass instruments are not your friend in COVID in the same way. You know what I mean? And so I personally put an N95 on and then a cloth mask and then a respirator and worked on my like deep breathing skills. And then I felt totally safe to move around and not, and then I would spray my hands and then just not touch my face. So that way I knew I wouldn't get COVID. Because by July, we'd started learning, in June and July, we started learning about COVID, and we started learning more about how to not get it. And so, and people weren't getting it. Like the protests weren't causing spikes in the pandemic. Right. And so, and it was a total mask wearing experiment. If you ask me, if you wear a mask and you're outside, you're okay.
Wow.
And at least in Portland, the way people are getting COVID is by hanging out with 2 to 4 families inside for longer than 2 hours without masks.
Yep.
That's how it's spreading here.
That's how it's spreading everywhere. Yeah.
That's our biggest problem.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I decided I needed to be part of it. I had to get my lane. I had to figure out where my lane was, because I'm a 40-year-old white woman and we're some of the most evil in this country. And so I had to figure out where was my lane and what was first. And, was I an advocate? Was I like a ninja advocate first? Was I a protester first? Was I a healer first? And I had to kind of figure it out. And I'm a healer and then I'm a protester, and I had to figure that out first because I felt like it was important to find my lane. And my lane is talking to the evil 40-year-old white women who don't understand what systemic racism has done in this country and don't understand how they've been part of it. And so that is my lane. That's my lane. And it's an important lane because white people are evil in this country and we have to talk to each other. So that's my lane. And the protests were really informative for my lane, and I'm a codependent people pleaser. So also I had to learn how to like fuck up and be told I made a mistake and say sorry and then move on.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're doing the work, it's not, that's,
right.
To do it.
Well, it's really important to me to be able to give a gyne exam to a trans man. That's really important. Yeah. It's very important to me to be a safe space for trans healthcare and also be a safe space for same-sex couples and trans couples or any couple that needs to use frozen sperm. Because I just like, I just feel like that's just my lane. That's another one of my lanes.
I just want to, I want to let you go because you're like literally the busiest person I know. And thank you so much for taking your time with us.
Thank you for having me and making me do it.
Yeah.
Me like in public. I was like, you want to see me?
I have access to you, but Bloom Healthcare. What is it?
Oh yeah, it's bloomnaturalhealthcare.com. And then all the contact information is there. And then we have a website and front desk and my email's on there. It's not hard to get a hold of me. It's just haywoodashley@gmail.com.
Yeah.
I can't give medical advice over email, but I can call you.
And yeah, just I so appreciate the medical advice, but also how you've helped me as an activist. I feel like learned so much together from each other, constantly pushing each other. You are one of my biggest teachers on this planet. So thank you.
Likewise. It's a gift to find a safe space to learn together.
Yep, definitely.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yay, wise women.